Hello, everybody, and welcome to your golden ticket to success, freedom, and happiness. My name is Maria Kay, and I am so happy to welcome today Melissa with us. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Delighted to be here.
Melissa has been identified by Forbes magazine as one of the top 20 women of influence for entrepreneurs to follow. She is the entrepreneur success coach, and for the last decade she's worked with hundreds of creative business owners to blueprint outrageous businesses for success and have them design awesome lives, which I know she's also doing for herself. So Melissa, it's so exciting to have you here because I know that you have some really juicy stuff to share with our audience today.
Always juicy stuff to share.
First of all, could you start by sharing with us perhaps anything poignant that happened in your life, any particular series of events or occurrences that took place that you feel have shaped who you are today, both personally but also in the work that you do out in the world?
I think the most pivotal was losing my mother very suddenly when I was 24 years old. She was 62. She had a huge career, globally recognized, and was, walking down the street to the hairdresser. She had a brain aneurysm and collapsed and never came to. And being only 24, I was just out of college. And up until that point, I had lived my life very much the way my mother had planned that I would. I wanted to make her proud, and she had a plan for my life, and I was following it. It wasn't necessarily the plan I wanted to follow, but she had a very, very strong influence. So it kind of took that catalyst and then 5 years on top of that for me to get a couple of really big takeaways, which have absolutely informed my life since. And the takeaways were that life is too short to do something that you don't love. I did embark on a career path that I was very good at. I made good money at it. I was one of the few women, and I was miserable every day. So that didn't work very well. But it took my mother's passing to give me the permission to explore what I truly wanted to explore, which meant returning to school and working full-time and getting a second degree. This time, instead of in hotel management, which was my first degree from Cornell, I got a degree in interior design. And I embarked on a creative path. And also that life is incredibly fragile, perishable, and unpredictable. And if you're not living in the moment, you're not guaranteed more than that. None of us know our expiration date. And the biggest challenge is the greatest resource we're too short of. It's not a mineral, it's not a gas, it's not a gem, it's none of that. It's time. Because there's no bank of time. You don't get to just arbitrarily, well, I'll go put in a deposit here and 5 more years later I'll take it out. You don't get to do that. You have what you have. You never know when it's up. And if you're not maximizing it, you're going to be at that point going, oh, if only. Gee, why didn't I? And I made a decision that I didn't want to lead an if-only life. So about 5 years after her death, I returned to school. I got a degree in design. I was working full-time, wound up jumping into owning my own business since I was changing jobs every 18 months. And when I was in hotels, I was changing jobs every 8 months for 5 years. I bucked authority a lot. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to set my own rules. And the only way you can do that is by owning your own venture. And that really is a lot of how I came to coaching other business owners today. My coaching is not necessarily a gentle process. I can hold your hand, but I would rather give you that swift kick where you need it the most and push you forward into your potential. I think that coaching is kind of a misnomer for me. I'm kind of coach, consultant, catalyst, driver sometimes. I want to encourage, but at the same time, I don't want to put you in that place where it's okay if you don't do it. It's not okay. You have a mission and a purpose to fulfill, and my mission and purpose is to make sure that you get there.
Oh, I love that, and I think you and I share that ideology that yeah, time waits for no one. So thank you for highlighting that today. So you talked about you reached a point in your life where you felt as though perhaps you were living off purpose, although you were very successful. And as part of the theme of our event is success, freedom and happiness, could you talk a little bit about that? Perhaps, and you say it happened over a few years, it wasn't like an instant aha, but as you were kind of getting to a deeper understanding of, hang on, over here I'm earning good money, I'm, you know, successful, but somewhere in the middle I'm not happy or fulfilling my purpose. What were the main themes for you as you sort of took a closer look at your life? What was cropping up for you that really made you take that step into living on purpose?
Well, I guess for me, I had lived a fairly narrowly defined life. I was very regimented and very structured in my life up until that 5 years past my mother's death. And then I kind of blew the doors off, so to speak. And I did that because I redefined success. Success growing up as I knew it, as most of us when we're growing up, we think, oh, success means you have a lot of money. Success means you can do whatever you want. We didn't tie it. And I don't think most children and teenagers tie success to happiness. But the reality is money is just a tool that facilitates trade. It's not anything more than that. And the happiest people I know are rarely the most monetarily rich, so to speak. I won't say they're not the richest, because they are, but it's a different type of richness. And I redefined what I wanted. I redefined what was important to me. Travel and adventure and being curious about the world, a gift I did get from my mother, became incredibly important to me. And as I moved into my new career track, I made sure that I was traveling every year. And as I got further into my business and grew it and became more successful, I could take big adventures. I could go to Africa on safari. I could go to India. I could go to Greece and Bali and these amazing places and experience the culture and the customs and the wisdom of all of that. And that really informs who I am and how I show up in the world and what my value system is. And so when you redefine success on your own terms, and it's not tied to a traditional metric like how much money you have, how big your house is, how hot the car is that you drive, or whether you're wearing designer labels, which are all lovely, they're incredibly superficial, and you know, they mean something to some people, they don't mean anything to other people. But the key is to define it on your own terms, and to me it was travel, having a beautiful home. As a recovering designer, that's kind of important. Wearing designer clothes isn't to me. I actually buy a lot on consignment. Now, will I buy designer labels on consignment? You betcha. But I'm getting them at a fraction of what they would cost because I know how often I like to change my mind. So if I only wear something 3 times and put it back in the bin, I don't feel badly about it. So it's that balance that you find in what's really juicing you up. And for me, it's having friends over and entertaining. It's connecting live, getting off the social networks, not spending time on Facebook. When I can go to the mountains, I have a retreat up in the mountains of North Carolina. When I can spend a weekend and not turn on the laptop and not turn on my cell phone and hang with my friends face to face, I love that. There's nothing better and nothing that indicates greater success to me than that.
Oh, I could sit and listen to that all day. So really what you're saying to our audience is create your own idea, create your own life, design your own life, right?
You have to design your life and design your definition of success and understand that your definition may not be somebody else's definition. It's unique to you. Don't let anybody else tell you how to define it. Because only you can define your happiness.
What would you say, Melissa, to somebody who perhaps is currently feeling as though they're a slave to anything in their life, perhaps a job, a career, their body even, perhaps slave to, as you said, maybe cultural patterns, or their parents' idea of success, or even debt, or anything that is keeping them in a space of living off purpose? What would you say, and what tips would you give them?
And I've been a slave to a lot of those things. I've been overweight, so I've been a slave to food. I've been in high levels of debt, so I've been a slave to that. And I've been a slave in a job. I think the key is that you look at where you are as exactly that and nothing more. It's not where you're going to be. It's not where you're going to end up, because you have choices. And the choices that you make in a moment-to-moment, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis are what will inform where you end up. You can start making new choices in this second. I had an incredibly wise coach say to me many years ago, she said, Melissa, you can be a different person in the next hour than you are now. And it's a really big concept to wrap your head around. But the reality is, it has to do with the attitudes as well as the beliefs that you hold. And your beliefs are exactly that. You're the source of your thoughts. They don't come from outside, they come from inside. If you think, as I did for many years, that my mother knew best, that I needed to make my mother proud, that I didn't want to go against a suggestion she had, then you will live your life that way. But those were my thoughts. My mother's thoughts were out here. I brought them in and internalized them and lived by them. It wasn't my truth. And when I woke up, because of her death, which I have to say is a pretty crappy way to wake up. I don't recommend doing it that way. And claimed my own path, and it took me 5 years to do that. It was still scary, but it was very freeing. And I realized that my mother had gone through that in her own life, only she started a lot younger than I did. Because she knew at the age of 7 what she wanted to do, and she fought for it until her parents said yes at the age of 11, and skyrocketed her from there. So it's the choices that you make each and every day, in every moment. You can at any given point in time decide, you know what, I'm not going to be a slave to food in the next 2 hours. Just do it a couple of hours at a time. And then you'll say, okay, it's been 2 hours. I've not been a slave to food. I'm going to try for another 2 hours. Or, you know what, I'm a shopaholic. I'm a slave to my debt and my credit cards because of the way I spend money. I know this. I can change it. Don't throw up your head and say, I can't do anything about it. Well, then you're playing victim, and that's just a bunch of hooey nonsense. We've all been victims at different points in our lives. Being a victim is a choice, too. It's not a very wise one to make. But you say, you walk by that boutique and you say, okay, today, window shopping is enough for me. Just today. Tomorrow I'll buy something, but today, window shopping's enough. You get through the end of the day and you go, I did it. One whole day. Okay, I'm going to try it again tomorrow. Baby steps. It's when we say, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next month, that we completely fail, because it's not realistic. We're human beings. We have weaknesses. We have temptations. And I believe in giving into a lot of temptation, but I also believe in taking care of myself, because I want to be around for a really long time and I want to have a great quality of life. Long answer to a short question.
Oh no, love it, love it. So, so as you were speaking, I'm sort of. We talked about how we become slave to many different things in our life, and we can look at it from two angles. And we talked about how it can come from an external source, so our parents, society, the media, where external. And could you comment a little bit on how, perhaps, because you touched on it as you were speaking just then, perhaps how, with regards to our freedom, and as you said, we can decide in the next hour to be a different person. Could you talk about a little bit about the mindset that is required, not perhaps to change fully, but to step into or welcome in as we're deciding to be a different person and live in line with the person that we want to be. Because as you said, many of us, we look to a month's time or in a year's time or in 5 years' time. But how do we need to be in this moment to match up to that person we're aspiring to be?
If you focus on the moments, the months and the years will take care of themselves. So the key is to know that at any given moment, you can change your thoughts to the positive. And I have a history with long-term depression, okay? A very serious history. Refused medication, in and out of therapy over the course of years, found my ways to manage it were watching my diet, especially my intake of sugar, and exercising on a really regular basis, because it was about the only thing that would release the endorphins that I needed to fix the imbalance that I have chemically. So I'm not suggesting anybody get off meds, by the way. If they're on them, that's up to their physician. But a lot of this is a mind, it's a game in a way. And you can choose whether you're going to win the game or whether you're going to lose the game. And it's not about changing yourself, because I think that's a misnomer. I think it's more about making a series of tiny shifts until you grow into the person you most want to be. Change is hard for all of us. Shifts are easier. All of us can make tiny shifts over the course of a day. And it's like those tiny corrections. It's like when you're learning to drive and you're going to stop slowly, turn gently. If you wrench the wheel, you're going to make a very sudden change, and it's going to get uncomfortable. You're probably going to hit another vehicle. A whole chain of events are going to occur. You don't want to do that. So it's really about learning to allow yourself to make tiny shifts. If you're in the middle of a mood, you can say, okay, I'm in the middle of a mood. I'm in a huge funk right now, and I'm just going to stay in my funk. Okay, well, how's that working for you? Probably not. So I'm going to allow myself 10 minutes of funk, and then I'm going to pull myself out. I went through this the other night. I had something happen on Sunday that really upset me. And I called a girlfriend and I said, okay, you give me 10 minutes to cry on your shoulder, and then I got to suck it up and move on. And she did. And it worked out great. But the old me would have given myself license for weeks of that, which is so completely not only unproductive, but it's unkind to myself, because it's not who I really am. So it's about shifting into your better self. Not shifting into a different self, but just shifting into your better self. Like, that's what makes the biggest difference.
Melissa, do you have a kind of daily practice, something that you do perhaps on a regular, if not every day, that helps you show up in the world as your better self?
I have a very strong daily practice. Usually takes about an hour. Some days it gets cut down a little bit because I'm a little short on time and have more to do. I read a daily devotional. It's called Daily Word. I read one page every day, and then I have a journal. I do 3 pages a day. They're called morning pages. I don't call it journaling because I find journaling distasteful. So I just reframed it to something that I liked. And calling it morning pages works well for me. I usually do about 3 pages of those. I allow myself latitude. This morning I did 1 page because I didn't have any dreams that I could recall. Often I'm writing down my dreams. The key for this is to do it right when you wake up. I wake up, grab a robe, feed the cat, and sit in the chair and start writing. I don't make the bed. I don't brush my teeth yet, because you want that window before your ego's woken up. Once your ego wakes up, it's all this eliminates that. It gives you some time to just download. And then I also meditate for 20 minutes minimum, longer if I can get it, with a really cool little app on my phone called Insight Timer, which I love. Love it. Even has the Tibetan bells on it. I think it's fabulous. And I get to find out who else in the world is meditating at the same time, and we can send messages back and forth, which is a blast. So that's my kind of daily wake-up routine and what gets me going and keeps me positive.
I love that. And I love how you cut yourself some slack, because a lot of people, when they hear somebody who is successful and has made a real success of their life in the terms that suit them, and they hear about their practice or what they eat or what they don't eat and all of the things, and then they look at their life or perhaps their tendencies or lack of, and then there's this whole danger of going into, oh, I'm not good enough, or I don't do it for that long, or blah blah blah. So thank you for sharing so honestly, because I'm a big advocate of pioneering for that place of being dedicated to that which you want to achieve, but then also being human and being real and being okay with what is. So yeah, I think that's a really important point to highlight there. Could you talk us through, say, when somebody comes to work with you, first of all, what are the first steps that you take with them? Do you dive straight into the business content, or is there a kind of almost a preliminary phase where you'll look at perhaps whole lifestyle or something else that might be useful?
It's easy to dive into business first, but it's not the wisest place to start. The wisest place to start is that powering up their vision and seeing what they want their whole life to look like. So there's a real imaginative process that takes place. I have a number of exercises and assessments that are fun and revealing that we go through and really set them up for success. And everything we do is incredibly flexible. There's nothing set in stone. You create a blueprint, but it can be changed by adding new imagery to it, by adding new words to it, by adding new goals to it, by adding new achievements to it, by adding new happiness milestones to it. And starting with what you want it all to look like, then we design the business or redesign the business, which is often the case, to deliver that vision as quickly as possible. And really and truly, if you start with the business without the vision, you're designing in a vacuum. And you're backing life into the business. Now, I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life fusion. Because I think it's almost impossible to balance something of that magnitude. I think the reality is there's going to be days where it's more work and there's going to be days where it's more life. But when you are showing up fully present with all of your gifts in your business, you're juiced, you're excited, you're tuned in, turned on, engaged, and connected at the highest level. So there's no separation. You're not like putting on a mask and putting on a cape and showing up at work as a different person or as half of yourself, which is what most people do. They leave the best bits at home every day and show up at work with just half of themselves. And then when they get home, they put the best bits back on. So I'm really an advocate of not separating the two and of allowing bleed over, and at the same time making sure that the business serves and supports the whole of your life and never swallows you whole.
Yes. What would you be able to share with anybody who perhaps is still chained to a job and it served them, until now, but perhaps it's not so much, and that, when you get that first kind of inkling, that first nudge, that gentle nudge, or perhaps it's a big one, but somebody who hasn't quite figured out what to do next, perhaps it's fear or perhaps it's just lack of clarity, what would you say would be something that you would advise for them?
I think the first thing you want to do is get clear on what your basic needs are. So run the numbers. Seriously, most people fail to do this, and that's where they get into trouble really, really quickly. Just run the numbers about what your basics are in terms of what you need to support your lifestyle in the form you become accustomed to, and what are you willing to cut out, if there's anything you're willing to let go of, and make sure that you have at least a 6 month to a full year's reserve before you take that flying leap into the wild blue yonder of entrepreneurship, if that's where you're going to go. The chained word is interesting because I felt that way, but really it was my own doing. I was the only one keeping me there, and I was the only one feeling chained. I could have changed that at any moment in time, and reframing it could have had a big, big impact. I would also encourage anyone to go beyond the workplace to get your fulfillment. Join organizations whose causes you love and respect and want to support. Connect with people who are business owners, if that's a path you want to take, and find out what it's really like from them. Do kind of weekend and evening internships in a field that you want to explore before you just leave the job you're in and jump out there in the wild blue yonder. I'm a huge risk taker, okay? I have one friend who, for as long as I could remember, would always look at me and go, "You're so brave," and I'd look at her and I'd say, "I'm either brave or stupid, I'm not sure which." It's not necessarily right for everybody to take the level of risks that some of us take. And you are the only one who can determine the right level for you. I'm fearless on a lot of levels. I also believe that when you feel stuck, do something physically dangerous. I've bungee jumped. I've skydived. I've tandem hang glided. I've parasailed. I've ridden a camel. I've ridden an elephant. All because if I can push myself out of my physical comfort zone, I'm infinitely more likely to push myself out of my mental, my emotional, and my spiritual comfort zones.
That's such a juicy piece of advice, and I'm a big one on that one too. So go and do something adventurous, guys, and then things will start to move for you. Melissa, just before we start to wrap up, just in the space that we're in today, and I know there's so much more that we could cover, perhaps for another time. Just before we wrap up, is there one last inspirational nugget that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Oh, I give you a couple of those. Life is an adventure to be lived, not a problem to be solved, is a big one for me. And life is in the living, not in the waiting. If you're busy waiting for something, you might be waiting for a new job. You might be waiting for a relationship. You might be waiting for a divorce to get out of a relationship. You might be waiting to lose 10 pounds. You might be waiting for a new car, waiting for a new house. Stop waiting. Just go do whatever it is you're going to do, regardless of where you're at. One of the reasons that we're in this incredible advent of so many young people doing such extraordinary things is they're not waiting. My generation, we were told to wait. We were taught to wait. So stop waiting, start doing, start living, and start being the human being you can be. I am incredibly human. I am perfectly imperfect on every level. And when I gave up being perfect, what a relief it was. Because holding myself to that standard was brutal. Absolutely brutal. And if you will let go and realize that you are a human being having a doing experience, but remember about the being part, life's going to be much more beautiful, much kinder, and a heck of a lot more fun.
Oh, I felt your energy just go, oh, when you talked about when you tried to stop being perfect. And I think, yeah, a big one, a huge one. Melissa, I know you've got an exciting gift for our audience today. Please do share.
I do. I would encourage you to go to yourprosperityacceleration.com. I've got a quiz there. It's quick. It's not going to take you more than about 5 minutes. Want your first thought answers, and at that point you will get a report of findings that will let you know where you are on the path to your prosperous business and life. And it may lead to a personal discussion with me, or it may lead you to some exercises that we've got inside. I've also included, and I just finished recording these actually yesterday, the 5 money mindset myths that are holding you back. I cannot say that 5 times fast. But these are myths that I struggled with when I started in my own business and hung me up for a good 5 years. And if I can save you 5 years out of your business and out of your life, I'd love to be able to do that. I really would. So I invite you and encourage you to find me on the social networks. You can find me by name. It's Melissa Galt, G-A-L-T. Those of you that have read Ayn Rand know John Galt. No, I'm not related to him. But I do get that question a lot. So please find me, connect with me, let me know that you met me here with Maria, and I would be delighted to have a conversation with you, answer any questions, and spur you forward. I'm here to help you realize your potential, because as a globe, we all go farther together.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way to end. And go and grab your free gifts, guys. And Melissa, it's been a pleasure, and I really look forward to connecting with you again very, very soon.
I look forward to it and hope we can make it face-to-face one of these days.
Absolutely. Wishing you and everyone watching today a bliss-filled rest of your day.
Thank you.